Your addiction is useful. Now, you might not have expected me to say that, but this is one of my foundations of recovery. Essential concepts, principles, or ideas that I think are important to understand before we start doing recovery work. Your addiction can even be helpful. Mine was helpful. It was also damaging. There's no doubt about that. I mean, anybody who's dealt with anybody in addiction understands the harm and the damage it causes. It's very easy to see. Addiction takes your health, your mental health, takes your money, your time, keeps you from doing well in your job. If you're not getting fired, you're sure not getting promoted. You're not learning and growing. Addiction keeps you stuck in life, and it damages every relationship you have. That stuff's all easy to see, all right? What's harder to see is what it does for us. What's the benefit of addiction? Because there is a benefit there. There's a reason why you're using. It's doing something for you, and I think it's important to understand what. In psychological terms, this comes from behavioral psychology, which says that any given behavior has one of 4 functions. These are the reasons why we do anything. The 4 functions of behavior are attention seeking, to communicate with others, to get others to see us and interact with us. Escape avoid behaviors, where you're trying to get away from something undesirable, something frightening, whatever it is. Then there's tangible behaviors. Those are pretty simple. You just want something, so you go get it. If I go steal a chocolate bar, that's a tangible behavior. I wanted a chocolate bar. Or number 4 is sensory behaviors. We engage in some kind of a behavior to alter the way we feel, our sensory experience. And that's an important one. I wish that I remember where I heard this next phrase, because it was pivotal in my recovery. It really made a lot of sense to me, but I cannot remember where I picked it up along the way. Somebody at some point said to me, everybody in addiction uses for one of 2 reasons, either to feel good or to not feel bad. I belong to the latter category. I use drugs and alcohol to change the way I felt inside. All right. I used drugs and alcohol because there was something about my experience. There was some feeling inside of me where I just didn't feel comfortable. There was always something going on inside of me. And it changed over the course of my addiction. I mean, at first it was more social anxiety. Like, I would drink to be around people because people made me feel uncomfortable. But then later, as I became more isolated in my addiction, I was alone a lot. And I didn't really even know how to recognize the feeling of loneliness, but I found out later that I'm drinking to get rid of the loneliness that I'm feeling. So there was a reason why I was using. Now, there could be dozens and dozens of different reasons that make sense to you, and then there's the reasons that make sense to me. But this is a foundation of recovery, and you need to understand that you are using for a purpose. It is giving you something. And if you can identify and understand what that something is, you're one step closer to being able to conquer your addiction. We have to know why we keep going back. We have to understand what is driving us to keep using. Then we can start coming up with different ways of solving it. Remember, in the last video, I talked about system 1 and system 2, all of the automatic processes that we're unaware of versus deliberate decision making. So this falls into the system 1, system 2 framework. Your desires to use, whatever they are, mine was a sensory behavior to get rid of anxiety, so I felt more comfortable. All right, that was all within my system 1. I didn't recognize I was doing it. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I was doing it automatically. It was a motivation and a drive inside of me. Once I used my system 2 to identify that problem and to think about it, then I could start to strategize and come up with ways to replace that very real need. See, these needs that we have inside, they're real, they're legitimate, and they cannot be ignored. And if you try to ignore them, they will find a way to destroy your life. So, identify the need, identify the reason, the function for your use. Find out how your addiction was helping you. And once you've identified those key areas, well, then you can set about fixing them, making them better, finding healthier ways to get those needs met. But that's our foundation recovery for today. Just understand that 2 things can be true at the same time. Addiction can be damaging, but it can also serve a purpose. All right? Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.